Good morning for people listening on the webcast. We're going to be starting a few minutes late because of the Long Beach Marathon, and people are still working their way through the block streets to get here. So please be patient. We'll be starting momentarily.
Logan is didn't pick a two shots, Logan Jim against me. Lanka, it's a Langa class. Mabuchi got because the Kaba George. Oh, yeah. No. Today's quite difficult to come, is it? Really? Yeah. One day per year. 2 days. Oh, yeah. Đúng rồi. Ok. Cảm ơn condition nhìn đó. Ok. Sura na tu shige be. Kenga ya cham cham de do ke. Ya cham shige. No. Kun de game show de. Na wona jana pa be kyo je shebe de kun de game show de do. Yes, yes. Ge ka ba na u chen de ko za am je sai de. Yes. Namo be Namo Bedaya Namo Dharmaya Namo Sangaya Namo Gurube Namo Bedaya Namo Dharmaya Namo Sangaya Namo Gurube Namo Bedaya Namo Dharmaya Namo Sangaya Gayande Aloje Wenje kara ekyo yasar Oyan de ekyo yanze Kyo yanje yanje yabo Kyo yanchi yalo yasa yata Se yata yanje yabo Nendera ekyo yasa yasa Denge yanama yankar Se yanje yabe yande yate Yayatse yala yama Yayabe yanzuma yankar Dayalo yatebe Sayanama yakin kyuhayato Yayamba yajayashar Kayajar yagyuhayaso yaso Kiyayajayachayakun Dala yalo yajayato Kiyayasayana yabi Jayanjur yalayikeyaso Ayabe yashe Lama yamarhajanze yabe Toyante yajayabe Yende yala yashayate Yayawo yajayaye Naya maya doya da Chaya gemaya doya be Naya saya chaya chamaya so Oya chamaya ya ga Chaya chaya doya soya de Chaya namaya kaya jo Chaya loya chaya baya ba Daya gaya toya me Yaya ne soya baya Yaya ngaya je Yaya baya Yaya jaya dam Yaya para ya damaya ba Samaya jaya me Yaya sho Yaya ne jaya ba Jaya be soya sarayika Yaya me yatendra Maya taya dhamaya lhayata Yaya jaya banghaya be Araya jaya taya yasha Yaya boya chaya che Lavaya chaya zaya baya la Daya jaya samaya ba Daya be yaya raya mo Yaya tsaya lahaya ma Yaya baya chaya namje Chaya kaya kaya la Chaya 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 ne Chaya taraya samaya be Yaya chaya chaya mahaya la Samaya jaya chaya chaya Charaya pahaya vaya toya sa Namaya daya vaya sa Yaya leya yaya vaya Soya joya kaya la Sanaya meya vaya Taya maraya naya ma Yaya kaya raya vaya ni Shaya taya maraya do Maya namaya taya maraya yo Daya soya jaya ni Saya biya gaya vaya de Taya tangaya doya maha Kaya loya kaya peya ta Chaya paraya jaya se Loya saya chaya baya Ebe ya bo Ya doya saya shaya ko Meya meya chaya me Paraya chaya shaya brasa Chaya meya chaya be Boya jamaya behaya Yaya boya maya li Yamaya zaya saya phaya da
Tenzin Dorjee Gyeltsen Venerable Geshe Tsultim Gyeltsen
We must strive to accomplish complete enlightenment for the sake of liberating infinite, kind, mother sentient beings. And for that reason, we should cultivate the altruistic motivation or bodhicitta motivation. And with that kind of motivation, we should participate in this teaching. I believe that we are participating in teachings and cultivating Dharma or spirituality, practicing teachings with wish to free both ourselves as well as others from the state of suffering, so that we can eventually achieve complete enlightened state of Buddhahood for the benefit of other sentient beings. Starting from our historical teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha, and down through lineage spiritual masters such as Arya Nagarjuna, Arya Asanga, and as a matter of fact, all the great realized master scholars of India and Tibet, what we learn is this, that So through all of them, what we learn, or what they have unanimously said, is this, that in order for us to get rid of all the suffering for good, the suffering that we don't want, and to find lasting peace and happiness, there is no other way or means or method except to cultivate Dharma or spirituality. So if we were to kind of summarize what they have said, it boils down to understanding what is called the theory of karmic action and its outcomes or results.
Sanjay Kamde Nega, Lake Gavas and then David Devan Joyata, and the Lemigavas in the tea, and David Dungin Joy to Takanangas.
Shakyamuni Buddha has very clearly taught that if we were to do positive or wholesome karmic actions, these would bring us happiness as their outcome or result. And if we were to do negative karmic actions or unwholesome karmic actions, these would lead to suffering results. Such are the things Buddha taught us, and we should not simply accept what Buddha said, based on some blind faith. But we should use our critical intelligence to examine or investigate the truth of Buddha's teachings. Buddha adopted in his teachings the kind of approach where what he taught it accords with what reality is or what truth is, or that he based his teachings on what we call the sound or valid reasoning. So Buddha's approach of the teachings consists of, if you will, such things as what is really real truth is in reality, and also taught things based upon what we call sound rationale. Buddha has always taught us and emphasized that whatever we do, we must do it, in this case meaning as we study and practice Dharma, it should be based upon understanding sound reasoning or rationale. What's the purpose of doing whatever we are doing? So relating to that, Buddha talked about, 4 reliances. As a matter of fact, we can look at them from 2 different sides, What are the 4 things that we could rely upon, or we could cultivate as reliances, if you will, and what are the things we should not rely upon? So Buddha taught what we called 4 reliances, 4 things that we can and should rely upon, and what are the 4 things we should not. So the first thing he said was we must not rely upon a person per se, but what he or she teaches. So we got, what we should not rely upon, but what we should. So in other words, what Buddha is saying is that the person may look very poor, may not look, attractive, but what he says, he or she says, is the truth. It accords with Buddha's, teaching, principles of Buddha's teachings, then we should accept his words or his teachings, and we should not be bothered with how he or she looks from the outside. So that's really very important, to rely on the words of the person rather than the person per se. And then Buddha also said that we should not rely so much on the interpretable words or the teachings of the Buddha, but rather we should rely more on the definitive words or the teachings of the Buddha. And so that's, when we talk about reliance here, in other words, it could also be understood in terms of trust. What can we trust and what we cannot or should not trust per se. So here Buddha said that when it comes to trust, we should trust in a sense less on the things he said which require, interpretation, valid interpretation of course. But we should rely more on what he really said definitively. So we should rely more on his definitive words and teachings. In other words, that Buddha said things in certain contexts at certain time under certain circumstances, but thinking about other things. So in other words, that we must not take Buddha's words always at the face value. We must not literally accept everything Buddha said, because Buddha said many things which need valid interpretation. We need to understand why he said it and where he said it and what was the real intention behind what he said it. Otherwise, we cannot accept what he said literally. So those are what we call interpretable words or the teachings of Buddha. So we rely less on those, but we should rely more on his definitive words and teachings. And then Buddha also said that there are many types of what we call consciousness. There are sensory consciousnesses, and there is mental consciousness. So of these different types of consciousness, we should not rely so much on our sensory consciousnesses or sensory perceptions, but rather we should rely upon and trust our mental, consciousness, because sensory consciousnesses are often, how should we say, are often mistaken. No. And then lastly, Buddha said that we should not rely so much on the words, but on the meaning of the words. in other words, that we should not be carried away by or bogged down upon what kind of words he used, or whoever the speaker is. Are those the beautiful words or not the right one or whatever? But we should look more into what's the actual meaning that's conveyed through such words. If the meaning is really, meaningful, and it is about truth, then we should accept the meaning, but should not be so much concerned with the words.
So that we sung 가르쳐나 아니 장대원 땅 예대원 그 산지 간나비 장대원 땅 예대원 그 아니면데 단도스님들 간나 까들 아니 장대원 까단 예대니까 비니 뭐 수준 제발랐다 근데 이게 되게 되면 되게 이 거네 안 도신 제고 그래서.
So why Buddha had to talk about what we call literally translating the four things that we should rely on and the four things we should not rely on. So I call it four reliances. Why Buddha had to talk about those things is because Buddha taught things which can be classified into two types: interpretable words of the teachings and definitive words of the teachings. So in other words, that everything Buddha said cannot be accepted literally. There are things he said which require authentic, valid interpretations by analyzing why he said what he said and under what circumstances and so on. So to be able to understand the distinction between Buddha's interpretable teachings of the words and definitive words of the teachings, we need to understand the four reliances which I just mentioned. So how do we understand, the distinction between the interpretable and definitive words of the teachings of Buddha? Just trying to, simplify this. Whatever Buddha said, that we could accept literally as he said it. It doesn't need any explanation or interpretation of some sort. So such words of the teachings of Buddha are what we call the definitive words of the teachings.
가ring is in the pen singing that is Yavina. The danger soon journey. Don't like Hebrews, a country ponds and go on the lamb compress said that's soon but naive. Tagaran go back in there, Tagaran kill him.
Just to give you an example of Buddha's definitive teachings of the words, when Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths, of course in multiple ways, for one of the ways he said one must realize the truth of suffering. One must abandon the true cause of suffering. One must cultivate or meditate on the spiritual path, true path. And one must actualize or realize the true cessation of suffering. So these things Buddha said are definitive teachings because we accept them, we should accept them and could accept them just the way he said it.
Karing is a there. Pataman says that you can't yours. Pataman says here, the winning Pamela Sungu, but go by in the Karing is a letter in your money, but the Sungu says that the lake pa most soon at the Pama singer, the Pama thing was to Pama and around Nanju Pamela Sungu, but later in your money, but the Pama said, thinking about the sake was a Pangus cannon.
Now let me give you an example of Buddha's interpretable teachings or interpretable words. For example, Buddha said, father and mother are to be killed. That's what he really said, literally. Of course, that should not be taken literally, meaning that everybody should go and kill your mom and dad. Buddha did not say that. But he said those things, with different, intention and understanding behind that, which is he used the, words father and mother to indicate contaminated karmic actions and deluded states of mind. And to kill, meaning we should eliminate or we should abandon contaminated karmic actions and delusions. So that is the authentic interpretation or understanding of what Buddha meant by when he said father and mother or mom and dad are to be killed. So, of course, Buddha did not say such things to everybody. He said it to a particular person, and there was a very good reason why he said it to that particular person. If he didn't say it, there would be more tragedy and disaster. So he said such thing, but the person also understood, later on, of course, that what really Buddha meant was, although he was really perplexed at the time, what Buddha said, or maybe shocked, but then he understood that what really Buddha meant, he understood that Buddha meant he should get rid of his contaminated karmic actions and delusions. Now let me give you another example of Buddha's interpretable words of the teachings, which many of you probably are more familiar with. In Heart Sutra, Pranjana Paramita Hridayam Sutra, Buddha really literally talks about here no eyes, no ears, no nose, no this, no that. Well, of course, we cannot accept these words literally as Buddha said it. No eyes, no nose, no ears, and so on. But what he really meant is, by using such language or the terminologies, what Buddha was talking about is there are no inherently existent eyes, there are no inherently existent nose, no inherently existent ears, and so on. So that should be the proper or the correct understanding of what Buddha meant by, no this, no eyes, no nose, and no that. So the point I'm trying to make here is, as we participate in teachings such as the one that we are doing now, or that we are, reading or studying Dharma scriptures on our own, we have to keep in our mind that we may encounter, Buddha's teachings on all those different levels or the dimensions, where at the surface value it might seem like very contradictory and paradoxical, but at the same time, when we we have to know that certain sections of Buddha's teachings require valid, authentic interpretation and understanding. So, whatever Buddha said, every word Buddha said, whether we find it in definitive sutras or we find it in interpretable sutras, everything Buddha said was, said with the intention to help sentient beings grow spiritually to realize their ultimate spiritual goal. That's the enlightenment.
장면이 전티 나기게 아니 간디 중이 들어다 랑게 안 삼바데 틈바기게 되네 아니 산지게 살 트야게 나네 다 타키 만다 망보시 나요레스 송게 되송레스
Buddha's intention is to lead all sentient beings to complete enlightened state. So in order to do that, Buddha had to cater to the needs of diverse types of sentient beings. Because sentient beings have many different levels of mental dispositions, interests, and capabilities, and so on. So in order to suit the needs of a wide range of sentient beings, mental disposition, and potentialities, the Buddha had taught many different things. He had to give teachings at many different levels.
So 아니 제단이 전부 그 텐디도는 가능도 저기니 가자 버텐디니를 something juice 산지 근데 까 간디기 남베는 거 다슈 네 아니 동바 땡중 것 때문에 마템 배짱이 매스 가는 거야.
In terms of what Buddha taught, although there is this tremendous diversity in Buddha's teachings and approaches, but ultimately what Buddha has been doing is, as Manjushri Lama Tsongkhapa Rinpoche very clearly states in his in praise of dependent arising or relativity, Tental Turba, and as Geshe quoted the lines from his memory, so Rinpoche says that meaning Buddha, you, whatever you have taught, it has, to do with understanding emptiness and dependent arising. In other words, that whatever Buddha has taught, it either explicitly or implicitly guides us to understand the compatibility and the harmony, between emptiness and dependent arising. So what emptiness means is emptiness should be understood in terms of dependent arising, and dependent arising, helps us to understand what emptiness is. So that is the ultimate, the intention of a Buddha, and all Buddha's teachings have something to do with this particular notion or the concept.
양년 다설때 현줄면지 철라미스 아니 강성바데 텐데 동바 텐데 되는 좀 간나요 그래서 대 중국에서 가르쳐서나 아니 생기는 전에 교환 양린데 봐 탑이 탑레스.
So why Buddha's teaching has to do with understanding the complementarity of emptiness and dependent arising. The thing I just said is, Buddha's teachings either explicitly or implicitly, that's to say directly or indirectly, deal with emptiness and dependent arising. Why, if you ask? The reason why is, as Lama Tsongkhapa got the reasons in the subsequent lines, as Geshe quoted from his memory, is because Buddha ultimately wanted all sentient beings to go beyond the state of suffering, which is called nirvana. Buddha wants sentient beings to experience the real peace and lasting happiness of state beyond suffering, and such understandings that we mentioned earlier, understanding what emptiness means, dependent arising means, that would lead beings to go beyond the state of suffering. Of course, one of the very important things to keep in our mind is whatever understanding of Dharma that we have, it is very important for us, more important for us to put that into practice. In other words, to implement the teachings.
never see at Luta Ngata, never see at the Bangres, the Chambers.
So practicing Dharma or spirituality involves that we should not harm or hurt other sentient beings through our actions of body, speech, and mind.
So that the Loshol Karesana, that was that Junius and that seems to Tony, that gain a pendant to example.
And we should do the opposite of harming other sentient beings. That would be try to benefit others through the actions of our body, speech, and mind. Whether we could do it directly or indirectly. If there are things we could do literally or directly to benefit sentient beings, do that. But sometimes it's more like we are generating positive thoughts and attitudes, which are more like indirect, benefit to other sentient beings.
That give doing the Geshes and that control that they share it, that any going about the nigger, can't get us.
So as we create or make efforts to do positive things, accumulate merit, virtues, we should also see that our positive actions or the merits are not destroyed by destructive delusions such as anger. If we let anger destroy our positive actions, then it is like, we are... how should we say it? The Tibetans have a proverb, which is called, literally means that you leave your footprint, which is really important, your legacy, but then with your hand, you kind of erase it, So now there's nothing there. So we do not want to do that. We do not want to create merit and positive actions, and then we destroy them with some destructive emotion, particularly anger.
You that's my to machine that the Yamsalan driven you again, you share the Yamsan driven the church.
Let me put it this way, that someone might have quite a extensive knowledge about Dharma, but never really puts it into practice or cares about implementing it. Or some may have a very limited but correct understanding of Dharma and tries to put that into practice. Of these two individuals, the later one, the one who has a limited understanding of Dharma but practices it, so that's more important and that's better.
That the wrong to some Tanjirima may ying to pass on Tani, this is your marriage.
So as I always remind all of ourselves, as we go through this, we are talking about nobody else but ourselves. We tell ourselves, am I doing it? Is this what I am doing or I should be doing? We should not think of like, this is not a checklist to find out whether other people are doing this or not. That is, I didn't say it, but just to make the point strong, none of our business.
Okay, that Tarantaka said that, and then the name of Kansaninda. That is a Joss dogging the dandy.
Lolonsky.
The Karseguri. Consul Lata, Hemang, Lucian, Chill, and Davatani, Segurat, and the Kadu being Kadu. This is my Joss doggings. Kadu Kari and the tea to that tomato, the yen to take Lundeshi and the Matan, and they best and the that Pagin the US as Mambu, yes, Harris.
Okay, so we are going to go back to this wonderful text called Personal Advices from Kadampa Geshes. So the way I approach this now is I would like to go through each section and just explain what is really said in the statements, and I'm not going to take time to, pull resources from many other Buddhist texts to illustrate and to give an elaborate, explanation of the statement here. I think I did that, many years, and you know that, and just, I'm following a little different approach here. We would like to, hopefully finish this text, completely and soon.
All right. That Kasan to the Tag Jikum. Geshe Gumba Bishanis. Geshe Gumba was singing the Kadampa Geshe in the any rate and the a Georgia tag, Loma Georgia traditional race. And Konga Nation in those in Kangarasal, Yak and the Shungation in a man does the Kimbo in the Makan on the gas.
Now we are going to go through a section which actually records what a great Kadampa Geshe by the name of Geshe Gonpaba. He was one of the great disciples of great Adisha, and maybe no one has asked him any questions, but we have got some of his great advices here, what he feels are very important for us to follow. So let's go through what Geshe Gonpaba has got to say.
The Kadampa Domten Javan Junishi, Kadampa Gonpaba she, any Ame Sankurin, the Georgia Terry, Tawa Kashi Juni, Tama Zonke, Susu Zonke, at the time, Domten, but don't they Javan Juni pay 2 Kipasi, Mil Dias, Homa Industrial Pandavasi at Nangur. I remember about 3 times where those in Gomjan Junam. Thank you, yes, also.
Well, I kind of going against what I just said. Like I said, I'm not going to elaborate too much, and then I find myself doing it here. Let me just introduce a little bit these great Geshes of Kadampa here. All of them are the great disciples of great Adisha, and Domtemba, who is considered the main disciple of Adisha. During Adisha's lifetime, Domtemba acted more like a secretary, personal secretary to Adisha, and he was also, he played the role of, PR, like public relation person. And then there was another great Kadampa Geshe by the name of Ame Changchup Rinchen, and he was more like a personal attendant to, Adisha and taking his care of his personal needs. And Geshe Gonpaba, of course, attended Adisha's teachings, but he was more dedicated to do his meditation and practice.
And you might get Georgia, that's around something over doings. Gomjata, Yamis and any Yamita, she has to take and do a tagging is kind of.
So one day, Adisha, gathered all of them, said, you know what, today I wanted to, kind of test your realizations, how well you have been doing your practice, your meditation.
Ame Sankurin, Zangma Zoya Tang, Susu Zoya Tang, Taganagi Yaki Pia, Tamalos. Nangure Tilaki Gomsta Jun is Maresam. And don't tell Jimmy Junior Taganagi, that Millie Pen dress, the Trinidad, that over didn't gratis Dagaman to talk. She Lansa Gumbapa, she Lansa Pachi, Koran using that Gom Jayata Tandike nonsense. Take this, another time, and this is going with that.
So when they are sitting with great Adisha, right, Adisha asked him, he said, today I want to find out, who has, higher realizations among you and the outcomes of your practice, meditation. So at that point, Geshe Gonpa Rinchen, in his mind, he felt this way. He thought that, when I look at the Ame Changchup Rinchen, he's a very wonderful person, but he was always busy taking care of the personal needs of Adisha, right? He was cooking and he was cleaning and he was doing all sorts of things. He really didn't have much time to do meditation or practice, so he was busy there. And then he thought about Domtemba. Said, Domtemba too. He was, Adisha's personal secretary and PRO, and so he was busy again. So he really didn't have much time either to do meditation. But I'm the one who attend all the teachings. As soon as teachings are over, I just don't hang out and go back and do my meditation and practice. So somehow in his mind he thought, I think maybe I'm the more realized among us here.
So that's how you do this. Ame Sankurin that taxation. Congo pay Georgian Hundis and Tassantas of pay money to Shah, Lucy Chain Part. Kivita, money to me, Lame has a number of it. That's the Chelsea Yagasumusin.
So to cut short the story, what happened was, what really Adisha found was that among three of them, Ame Changju Rinchen was the one who was, who came out better in terms of realization. And because in Ame Changju Rinchen, he really was, purely dedicated and devoted to the service of his, guru, Adisha. And when Adisha often got sick and terribly sick, Ame Changju Rinchen wouldn't even care to, clean up his excrements and, all the feces and everything. And so he was very, purely dedicated to his master's service, and he came out better of the three.
That indeed Mango Yung that Malareba Kerse, and Malareba Homa Sumir, that any time Mugrash, then any number do us that.
So there are many, similar stories about how, I think even among the, disciples of the great Miller Rebbe, right? When Miller Rebbe tested their students' outcomes, somebody who was highly devoted to him, something, came out better than the others who thought they were better, because they were kind of just doing their practice.
Okay, I
just have to remind myself, just don't, get caught up, telling stories or, bringing so many other explanations here. I'll try to move smoothly through the text now.
Okay. That, we can go back again, is that going back on? Tangi Chimbi, Zawa Tony the Toops. Sanji Compatoya and Zawat Zona the Tony the two race cannon.
So Geshe Gombaba said that the root or the source for achieving omniscient state, that's enlightenment, is to fulfill the two types of accumulation.
That making him do it. So you put this as soon as the Tony but there was the Hagobus.
Well, but then I find myself kind of odd situation that I need to explain something. Otherwise, if I said that much, then I'm just repeating the text and you may not understand what this really meant. So what he really meant by the two types of accumulation is the accumulation of merit, positive actions, and accumulation of insight or wisdom.
That begin that. Shanju sempre gets a candidate driven at the soon source dogres.
So motivated by bodhicitta, whatever positive actions you create, such positive actions are considered as a collection of merit.
That don't need to be heritage simple gets a candidate at the and his chose kundogres.
And whatever positive actions we do, conjoined with the understanding of emptiness, or the conjoined with the wisdom realizing emptiness, such positive actions are considered as a collection of insight or wisdom.
So the Tony will take Zawat Katu, Pashi took Yanin to your risk.
Can put the Chumjajans on him. Can Chumjajans news?
The Tamjis.
Can the Tony get our Chanjusum to school?
All right. Tony Zawad did that. So now you told Zawad and Shanju sympathy to Google. You see the thought there and only to be heritage simply gets at the Google.
So the Geshe Gombaba said that the root or the source for attaining omniscient wisdom or enlightenment is the two types of collection of merit and collection of wisdom. And the root or the source of the two types of collection is to cultivate bodhicitta. So as Geshe just explained, that when we generate bodhicitta, and with that as a motivation, when we do virtues or positive actions, such positive actions become collection of merit. And when we generate understanding of emptiness and do virtues, such virtues or positive actions become collection of wisdom. And then the Geshe Gompa goes on to say that the root or the source of bodhicitta is great love and great compassion, and the principal precepts or advices or actions relating to all of those things are the 6 perfections or the paramitas.
Only to be here to see me and get that into his toes. Down the Titan Tawan and Karita Dinije. Sooner to show that he's told you about tea and saw the cover to an Pashi to Yalin to your risk and Chorba.
No. So when we think about how do we accumulate merit and wisdom, then it really boils down to the practices of 6 perfections or parameters.
That can be carries Nana and a Pashi took any Pashi told to Duncan. That's Jimbe Zawa the Carres, Zimba Tondi, Zimbe Zawa the Carresana, Mashapa Jiguta.
So what are the 6 perfections and what are their significance? Or how do we practice or cultivate them, you ask? Here Geshe Gompa says that the root or the source of generosity or giving, dan, is non-attachment. So Zinchama means letting go. Non-attachment is the source of generosity. To be able to purely give or to practice giving very purely, we have to let go any kind of attachment.
Sometimes I continue to keep here. Mamma and Jimba Ingaleta, Karichib and Chinese San Mavaji.
So when we, the way we should understand, generosity here is, it's not just giving to the poor and the needy, which is no doubt giving, but it also includes making offerings to the 3 jewels, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and Gurus and so on. And so whatever we do, whether we give to the poor and needy or whether we make offerings to the holy beings, in both cases we must let go of clinging and attachment. And the root or the source of the practice of ethics or morality, shila, is to cultivate what is called, noble friend.
The carriers and the close Zango Tembeina gave it to that big bed of membership, gave it to Tembeina, and Ranka and Sunju Tsultim Gyeltsen.
So how does that work is if we cultivate virtuous friends, friends of virtue, then we are not going to transgress our ethics or the vows, because being with good friends, noble friends, meaning those who like virtues and who do virtuous things, we are not going to contradict our ethics. Of course, the ethics or the practice of ethics consists of many different levels of ethics or categories, as I often explain to you. There is what we call the basic ethics of abandoning 10 negative actions of body, speech, and mind. And then there is what we call the ethics of individual emancipation ethics. And then there is what we call Bodhisattva ethics. And then above that we have the Vajrayana or the Tantric ethics.
That's Zebe, Pajituna, Zebe, Zawad Kalatu, mentioned symbol toes. That's Zebe, Zawad Kalarang, mentioned Zimbina, and Zaba going attack, and the Anila with Kichimuchanga.
And then Geshe Gompa says that the root or the source of patience or tolerance, shanti, is to be humble. Humility or humbleness is the source of patience. In other words, that if one sees oneself to be very humble, humblest of all, if you will, then that really helps one to cultivate or to practice patience.
Tang mencha zumba tang ngaji ni bote gendar was sesa ngaji chembo ina ane mil zeba going ke kali khabures.
Humility or humbleness it does not go with arrogance and pride, right? If one is very puffed up, arrogant and proud, has a lot of pride, then that person is going to be intolerant. He's not going to be very tolerant of others, what they think of what others think of him and so on. But if one is very humble, very that sense of humility, then that really helps one to cultivate patience.
Nyame chizani sosu mencha zuni sosu pe tobo yundi chembo ta kandi ji ina ane sosu mencha zumbu ina ane de ane ota zebe zawa ta daga na yi ge ane rala ane goya ke yundi jungya ke ta yin de chagu yores.
However, knowledgeable or realized one is, if one holds that very humble position, right, and respect everybody else as if everybody else is above one, then that is really the source of gaining or acquiring many remarkable and positive, qualities.
Ane jare thoya mamu ane jare jaya tan chamalo ane zeba magami jen shungwar mas.
All kinds of fights and quarrels and all those things are because of lack of patience.
That's the little tone at the Delatin and the Mandeva not so, but you go and try to how cold of
And I think based on our own experiences, we can, understand how impatience brings us a lot of troubles and headaches and problems. So let us not forget what Geshe Kumbhapa said, cultivate humility or humbleness, because if we consider ourselves as humblest of all, then that really augments or is very conducive. It helps us to practice patience in relation to others. And then he says that the root or the source of cultivating enthusiastic perseverance, enthusiastic effort, is to reflect upon death and dying. Now we need to find out how does that work,
Kare is and Randre. When Rancho Cheva any Cheval and Eba Mebata, and Namching Amy and Dosi Hakosuna, and the Chema Drivers does and maybe Chaviers. Kadina Co Church, Jipaki, some Tanta by Den and Mato, Rangi, and they kidnap that, and they Siva member and she Kori, she under that, and Shina, and it should be Mebata, and they rank any Karasagota, desert. Mundu he ha coin and Mahi Konta, Kansas, Shinamatu Dilmundu, somebody sharing with us.
If we are, constantly aware of the certainty of death, that means I'm going to die for sure. There is nothing mystery about it. There's nothing to doubt about it. It is a sure thing to happen. Not only is death a sure thing to happen in my life or anybody's life, but the time of death is uncertain. I cannot say when I'm going to die. That is also a fact of life. If we really find ourselves being mindful of, being aware of these facts of our life, then I think we cannot help but think about spirituality or dharma, most of the time. You see, we find ourselves practicing dharma, thinking about dharma all the time, because we know that, before death hits me, I cannot waste my time, energy, and resources. I got to do practice. Otherwise, once it hits me, I don't know what is going to happen to me in the next life. If I find myself in an unfortunate state, then you see, I won't find an opportunity to cultivate spirituality. And as a matter of fact, before death strikes me, I want to fulfill my spiritual aim. So that's how we really get very spiritually inclined and oriented and enthusiastic in our spirituality as we become aware of death. So most of the time, when we look at ourselves, we say, okay, I don't find much of a time to cultivate practice or think about spirituality. We are wasting so much time getting caught up with other things. Why? Because we do not care to think about death. We don't think about it.
That's something you saw that person took another. Something you saw that
and then the Geshe Kadampa says the root or the source of cultivating samadhi, concentration, is to be in solitude.
That's something going on. And then the Singcha Mambo is at Sangi Sing yourself going to Mabra, Ali Tambo Gonzanada. Tambo Gonzan, any that nay Wempala Gomgu.
So what that means is that, of course, especially for the beginners, if one is interested to cultivate samadhi or concentration, as beginners, one should seek a peaceful place or a solitude to cultivate samadhi. Because if one is going to be in a very crowded and hectic, I'll use the word that Geshe Tsultim used, hustle and bustle location, there is not going to be samadhi.
Now, when saying that when but the New Year's, that thing Landman doing. When but things to the New Year's, Nanke, when but the same Lun Dunziki, when but same Nando, when but the Yin those years.
So the Tibetan term here is Wenpa, means to isolate, literally. And I use the word, solitude, which could also refer to the location. So when we talk about isolation, we have to understand it in two different ways. To cultivate samadhi, we isolate ourselves physically from busyness and hecticness of life and situations. So that is called the physical isolation or wenpa, or being in a solitude physically where it is very peaceful and conducive to do our samadhi practice. But isolation could also be understood more importantly in terms of isolating our mind from discursive thoughts and all kinds of, all kinds of mental chattering, blah, 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 going on the mind. That kind of isolation, mental isolation, is more important, as a matter of fact, when we talk about cultivating samadhi. At the end of the three principal paths, work, which is a very amazing, wonderful work, Rinpoche, concludes. He said, means having cultivated solitude or seeking solitude, one should generate the power of enthusiasm in order to fulfill one's ultimate aims.
Something going in the same Namdo Wempa, Lun Dunziki Wempa,
So, in other words, if one wants to cultivate concentration or samadhi, one has to physically isolate oneself from hecticness and busyness and crowdedness of life and situations, and one has to mentally isolate one's mind from discursive thoughts and busy thoughts. And then Geshe Kadampa says here that the root or the source of cultivating wisdom is to look at one's own mind. So what he is saying here is that if we would like to cultivate wisdom, realizing impermanence, wisdom realizing selflessness or emptiness, then we have to we have to look at our own mind and investigate the nature of our mind, examine our own state of mind.
Around the same thing, doesn't seem but the palm never tawashene, Dangzi the tawashene, any the Losho Damito be carried sometime. Any Matawan Zimbi and Losho, any Mataba to be low, Rangili Shabashen, Rita, Masheba Shave Tabsheni, and those in the same Takishi was done.
So we have to look at our mind and find out, about our different types of grasping. If we find ourselves grasping at permanence of life and things, then we have to, counteract that grasping by cultivating understanding and realization of impermanence of life and things. So that's how we have to look at our mind and uproot grasping at permanence of life and things. And for the same reason, as we look at our mind, we realize that we are grasping at, inherent self. And in which case, now we have to counteract it by generating the understanding that, our mind does not exist objectively, inherently in and of itself. So with such understanding, we are able to uproot grasping at self from within our mind. And then Geshe Gombaba says that the root or the source for receiving blessings is to cultivate faith and respect from whom we seek the blessings. And then he says that the root or the source for all kinds of spiritual realizations and attainments we call ngurup, siddhi, or boon, for lack of a better word in English, is to observe our vows and commitments, to preserve our vows and commitments intact. So when we talk about the ngurup, the Tibetan term ngurup, which is translated as attainments or siddhis in Sanskrit, we can talk about what is called common siddhis or attainments and uncommon attainments. So if we would like to, accomplish whether it is common attainments or uncommon attainments, what really is essential here is to observe our vows and commitments properly and keep them pure and intact. And the next one is very important too, where Geshe Gombaba says the root or the source of what we call yönden. The Tibetan term yönden is literally translated as remarkable qualities, but this could also incorporate knowledge, understanding, realization, and so on. So it's a very generic, broad term. It says, qualities. So the root or the source for gaining qualities is to adopt the threefold approach of listening, contemplation, and meditation. And then he says that the root or the source to benefit others is, not to get overly concerned with one's own self-interest. And then finally he says the root or the source for fulfilling the purposes of both self and others is to do one's spiritual practice and to do meditation. So if we really look in all these things Geshe Gompa said, we can find, the things we can do practice for our whole life. And basically, our practice for whole life is contained in these statements from Geshe Gompa. So basically, Geshe Gompa has sort of identified what are the tawa, which literally means roots, but which are the source for gaining all kinds of, positive outcomes or results. And we will stop there today, and I have got many prayer requests here. So let me announce the request for those who have passed away. Prayers have been requested for those who have passed away. Beverly Niger, Kyle, Ursula, Roxana, let me see where I have Rolando Telesios. And so these people have already passed away, and prayers have been requested for them. Now, prayers for those who are dealing with health issues, who are sick. David Bellows and his family, his cousin, his mom, his father-in-law, all dealing with health issues. Asa Shakuri, Danny Ramirez, June, and do have okay, so they have requested for prayers to recover from their sicknesses. And can do is the analog again the college toji issue same da kazo kompa jigan zo. Ore. Di tenso da so. Di tandang inde kadimba. Again kadina ni shul na ni dirwa ke. No. Ni khada chi to. No. Ane ta are Sadongole Jabo Don General Let us dedicate our collective merit for the flourishing of Dharma throughout the universe, for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and all other great and holy masters. May they live long and be successful in fulfilling their visions, benefiting sentient beings. May spiritual communities throughout the world and spiritual practitioners from all traditions remain healthy, harmonious, and be successful in fulfilling their spiritual aspirations. May this and other world environments be free from all kinds of unwanted pains and problems, and beings find peace, happiness, prosperity, and spirituality. In short, we dedicate our merit for all kind mother sentient beings to be free from the fears and dangers of two types of mental obscuration, and may we all reach complete enlightened state quickly.
Washington Doggies, and so you have the Senda Kiva Chipakima the leg miss. The Barula Anita Anila de Sokiko Zanima Sunchu de Langaris, and that's not Samal Yunia for Youngers. How you mean about in their uni, so you need to share any trade in here, and so you should teach in the hours.
Some announcements. First announcement is about, I'm going to leave for Washington, D.C. on Tuesday to attend the Congressional Gold Medal event for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And I will be gone for a couple of weeks, and I will be back on November 1st, again, Tuesday, December. So in my absence, Venerable Tenzin Dorjee, Anila, will be, doing Sunday teachings, and I always, encourage everybody to attend them, if you have time, and as a matter of fact, I would say you should, and so that, you can, practice together as well. No. Take it So the second announcement is about, recently led by Venerable Tenzin Dorjee. I think many of our students have participated in the walk for, prevention of cancer or something like that. Just correct me if I'm wrong. And so Geshe appreciated that, and Geshe wanted to say that it was very wonderful that many of our students took part in that. Of course, the most important thing for us is to do our spiritual practice. There's no substitute to that. But then, at the same time, when we have some time, leisure, it's good to, participate in social, we might call activism and social engage in such important events to benefit, others. So I want to thank everybody who participated in that. But it seems like everybody, Geshe is going to give a kata scarf, a white silk scarf to those who participated. I think I can't see anything from here, but. So first, the kata goes to Venerable Anila.
Okay.
Next, another Anila, Anitarzo.
Oh, okay. Okay, good. Okay. Okay. How can you continue?
No.
Christine's not here. This one here. Okay. Okay, go. You? Yeah, come over here.
Hello again.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It goes to help breast and ovarian cancer research and support.
Hello again. So that's very wonderful that you did that, for to cure the cancer, and so I just want to say thank you to everybody who participated in that. And then here's the translator coming. I think because Geshe is living for a couple of weeks now, the sort of a cultural norm is more than cultural. It's culture is okay, but so you can save your prostrations for Geshe Save Written with that intention, not out of laziness, doing prostration. And so okay, Geshe have a safe trip.
Okay. Tenzila.
No.
The Gandhi children get into Kidit in the
No.
Any Koran to share in a dollar in a condition, which is drink sunny day. This bomb park, this bomb recon, I need to the man with the careless.
Switzerland.
And then you need to do.
Madame King did Susan Larson and Yellow Soro. Mean to
and they pack it with it.
Madame again, that I'm going to get a meeting so that I think a concert test level again and can be.
That's all test.
I think we have another request here. The Ganden Chuling Tibetan Buddhist Nunnery in Dharamsala, I think they have sent some donation booklets there, and we would appreciate if anybody can spare like $1 or $2 to donate to the nunnery. So please do that today, and you can contact Ane Kachula or Ane Tazula, either of them, and make your 2-cent contribution. We appreciate that because we need to bring them Keshla and go to the East Coast.
Okay. 아니 다때 먼저 때 가르쳐 그래. 참찬래 자님이 가다 가지고 지금 취기 그랬어. 아니 다 먼저 때 가르쳐 그랬다. 가제 센터 생각을 송자인자 저저다 배면 조용 효스. 아니 러더 저 년대쇼 그런 저 배우고 힘들었나? 군주 효스 아니 배만 춘줄라다 다 군주 가힌도 신의 맥gem바솔 배우고 디스히로스. 라요. 저자때 아니나 군주 최시기 하면다. 군주 그 배가지고 다 배대용 거다 된대 시기 저나 저 러더 저 최신기 저 아니 그 최년기 저 용도에는 있는 야버스 엔조는 배가 적된다 있어.
I think another announcement I want to make is that occasionally, this is of course Tibetan Buddhist monastery, and our primary focus is on the Buddhist teachings and practice. Having said that, it's also related very much to Tibetan culture, so it's a cultural center in that sense. And so occasionally, it seems like we are organizing speakers on Tibetan culture and cultural experiences. Now that's a very secular experience, it's not a Dharma teaching, okay? And so the first speaker seems to be like the former Tibetan cabinet minister, Mr. Pema Chenjo, Honorable Pema Chenjo, and he will talk about his life experiences and about culture. So that's more organized for the Tibetans, local Tibetans. At the same time, we invite our students, if you have time, you don't have to come. It's not a Dharma teaching, but if you have time, you're interested in that, learning about the Tibetan cultural life experiences, so you're welcome to those events. So we will be organizing that whenever we find time and occasion, because Sundays we can we do teachings, and so we will be keeping you, I think, informed in case you have time and energy and to participate. So sometimes when we don't have Sunday teachings or like that, then we will organize such events, and maybe if you have time, you are welcome to those events. So that's all.
Thank you.
Login.
You are.
Login Kalechino. Start that again and again. Continue again. Something Shurona.
Oh, yeah, yes. I try to Ali, you are not walks, but it's good. We'll see you.